Analog horror is unlike any other genre that we've seen. It doesn't rely on jump scares, over-the-top gore, or the latest CGI technology to terrify us. Instead, it thrives on something far simpler: unease. Today, we're diving into analog horror, the rise of retro terror, a genre that has quietly taken the internet by storm. We're going to explore where it came from, how it evolved, and why these lo-fi, VHS-style videos are some of the most unsettling content out there. Let's start by defining analog horror. At its core, this genre revolves around media styled to look like it's from the past. Things like VHS tapes, emergency broadcast systems, public access TV, and old instructional videos. But these aren't just nostalgic recreations. They're warped, disturbing, and filled with cryptic messages that suggest something deeply wrong is lurking just beneath the surface. One of the best examples is Local 58. Created by Chris Straub, it's a YouTube series that masquerades as broadcast from a local TV station. Each video feels like a relic from the late 20th century. Grainy visuals, distorted audio, and cheesy graphics. But what makes Local 58 so effective is how it slowly unravels its chaos. Emergency alerts warn of an alien invasion. Children's programming turns sinister, and the station itself feels almost alive. The horror isn't handed to you on a silver platter. It's in the details, the unexplainable glitches, the eerie tone, and the suggestion that there's something you're not supposed to understand. Straub didn't invent analog horror, but he's one of the pioneers who helped define its aesthetic. If we trace the roots of the genre, we end up with a couple different places. Some point to the found footage movement of the late 90s and 2000s, particularly films like The Blair Witch Project. These stories didn't rely on slick production or traditional narratives. Instead, they felt raw and authentic, almost like you were watching something you shouldn't. Others trace it back to creepypasta, the early internet's answer to campfire stories. Short, often cryptic horror stories like Candle Cove, also by Crystal Straub, and Ben Drowned used nostalgia as a weapon, twisting familiar elements like children's TV shows or video games into something horrifying. Analog horror takes those ideas and marries them to a very specific aesthetic, the analog technology of the past. And that aesthetic matters. There's something inherently unsettling about old media. Maybe it's the way VHS tapes degrade over time, leaving behind distorted visuals and ghostly audio. Or maybe it's the fact that analog technology feels so disconnected from today's digital age. It's physical, tangible, and flawed, like it has a history of its own. A history that might include things we never were meant to see. That's why analog horror works so well. It taps into our nostalgia for a time when media felt more mysterious and less controlled. Today, if you missed a TV show, you can just stream it. But back in the analog era, media was ephemeral. If you weren't watching when it aired, you might never see it again. That sense of impermanence adds to the unease. The genre really exploded with the Mandela Catalog, created by Alex Kister. This series leans heavily into the uncanny. It uses old-school public service announcements and training videos to build a world where alternates, doppelgangers of real people, pose a constant threat. It's not just the unsettling imagery that gets under your skin, however. It's the tone. The way it presents horrifying concepts in a calm, matter-of-fact way, as if you're being taught how to survive something unimaginable. But analog horror isn't just about creating creepy videos. It's about world building. Series like the Mandela Catalog and Local 58 don't just tell a single story. They hint at a larger universe, filled with unanswered questions. That's part of what makes the series so addictive. They leave just enough breadcrumbs for viewers to speculate, theorize, and piece together their own interpretations. And we can't talk about the rise of analog horror without mentioning the backrooms. While it didn't just start as analog horror, creators like Kane Pixels have embraced the format to expand the lore. By using retro aesthetics and VHS-style visuals, the Backrooms transforms a simple image of an endless, liminal space into a sprawling nightmare. It's a perfect example of how analog horror can take something ordinary, like an office building, and make it terrifying. So why has analog horror become so popular? Part of it is its timing. We're living in an era obsessed with nostalgia. From retro gaming to 90s fashion, people are drawn to the past. But analog horror doesn't just revisit the past. it corrupts it. It takes the comforting aesthetics of childhood and turns them into something sinister. There's also the internet's role. Platforms like YouTube make it easier for creators to experiment with analog horror, and the format is perfect for short, episodic content. These videos don't need Hollywood budgets or big-name actors. They just need atmosphere, creativity, and attention to detail. That accessibility has led to an explosion of analog horror creators, each bringing their own spin to the genre. But perhaps the biggest reason for its popularity is psychological. Analog horror taps into primal fears: fear of the unknown, fear of being watched, fear of something familiar becoming unfamiliar. And because it often avoids traditional narratives, it leaves viewers with lingering questions instead of neat resolutions. That ambiguity is terrifying because our imaginations fill in the gaps with the things far scarier than anything shown on screen. So where is analog horror headed? If recent trends are any indication, it's only going to grow. We've already seen creators push the boundaries of the genre, incorporating elements like alternate reality games, interactive experiences, and even AI-generated content. The possibilities are endless, and the demand is there. But there's also the risk of oversaturation. As with any trend, there's a fine line between innovation and repetition. For analog horror to remain effective, it needs to keep evolving and finding new ways to unsettle and surprise us. In the meantime, we can appreciate the incredible creativity of the genre's pioneers and newcomers alike. Analog horror reminds us that you don't need flashy effects or a massive budget to tell a compelling story. Sometimes, all it takes is a grainy VHS tape, an eerie broadcast, or a cryptic message to send chills down our spine. Thank you for watching Entertainment Hub. If you enjoyed this deep dive into analog horror, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments, what's your favorite analog horror series? Until next time.